Hello everybody, it's Stephen here for the Idiot Quilter and welcome to my weekly episode. It is episode number 369 and it's August the 18th, 2026. This would have been my father's birthday today and he would have been 88. Yeah, he was taken too soon. Anyways, on a nicer note, let's take a look at what I've been working on, and here it is. Almost have all the blocks done. There is one more block to make down at the bottom, the border, and then I'll sew all these pieces together and it will become a Christmas table runner. Now these are individual blocks that I bought from OESD and decided to create my own arrangement to make this table runner. I may put a border on it. I probably will. Not a very big one, just a skinny one. I'll see what it looks like when all the pieces are together. Right now, it's, we don't have any seam allowances or anything to work with. And then, of course, I'll back it and I'll just do some stitch in the ditch to keep all the layers together. And I have another potential Christmas project done, and possibly this might be a gift. I don't know yet. We'll see. Actually, I'm kind of glad I'm getting close to the end of this project because I've been getting a little tired of it. Each one of those blocks takes some time to do. And, I have the attention span of a squirrel. So, I want to move on to other projects. And I'll talk about it later. But I just got a new book and yeah, I'll talk about it later. Okay, so that's one of my projects. Another project is, of course, the Art East second star from the right quilt. I do have Tinkerbell and the stars done. Now you're going to say, well, why aren't the stars attached? Because they don't get attached here. They are a part of the quilt that gets attached later on. Yes, there are still many more characters to go. This was chapter 4. We still have Captain Hook, the mermaids, a little strange little creature, Schmidt, Schmoshmish, something he's called. So there's at least 3 more chapters. So September, October, November. Yeah. And then we get to put it all together. So, yeah. And I'm going to attempt Captain Hook. He looks like the biggest or the most complicated of all the blocks, at least in my mind, meaning the most little pieces. So I will do him maybe little section at a time. Rather than try to cut all the pieces out at once, I may take it from the way John has laid it out in the chapter, each little block, because then I think I'll feel like I'm getting something accomplished. Whereas with the cutting, you cut and you cut and you cut and you don't feel like you've got anything done. And I need reinforcement. Excuse my throat. I need to be, I have to feel like I've gotten something accomplished to keep me interested. So yeah, that's the way I think I will work on that. But those are coming along. And I've got some other projects I'm going to talk about in a minute. Yes, I keep piling projects on and getting nothing done. So speaking of projects and things, yesterday I set up Lucy for Walter. He is now moving on to the next level of his progression in free motion quilting. And I'm so proud of him. And I'm so happy that he is doing it and likes doing it because, yep, he's going to be my quilter, in-house quilter. But he's going to work on a panel, which is a large flower. You probably remember them. I don't have a picture here of it. I should have put one in. But you will remember probably a few years ago, they were all the rage, these big flower panels that look almost like a Georgia O'Keeffe kind of thing. Very attractive. Well, I bought one of those, and I bought it way back, quite a few years ago now. It might be 5 years ago or so, when I first got Lucy, because I thought I would use it to practice free motion quilting on. Well, guess what? I'm not, but Walter is. So I set that all up for him yesterday. Had a little problem with Lucy yesterday. I touched her. That's the problem. Walter touches her. She doesn't give him a moment of worry. I walk in the room and she decides, oh no, you touch me, you're going to regret it. My thread kept breaking when I was trying to baste the quilt top, the panel. It dawned on me after several breaks why it was doing this, because I forgot to put my clamps on the edges. And those clamps hold everything, including the batting. nice and taunt. I never say that word right, tight. And because for this particular quilt, we've doubled the batting, just so Walter can get a feel for what that's like with Lucy, and also because I was too lazy to unfold it and and put it on. So yeah, and so the needle, of course, is going down. It's a little bit loose. The thread's getting caught in the batting. It's breaking. At least that's my theory. But anyways, once I put the clamps on, no problem. So it's all ready for Walter to go. I don't think he worked on anything last night. He's been busy making pie. Again, yes, he made another pie. I should have taken a picture of it. Well, he made I'm calling it Bumbleberry. Because we had leftover blueberries, raspberries, and strawberries that we had gotten about a week ago, and we did not want them to go bad. So Walter made a pie out of those, and we had a piece of it last night. It's delicious. It always is. Okay, so deviated a little bit from what I was talking about, but let's bring it back. So what's up? Well, sewing with me, Wednesdays as usual, links in the show notes. You know the drill. Everybody's welcome. Come and go as you please. Work on whatever. Let's have fun. Okay, pop-up sew day. It was going to be this coming Saturday, but I have changed that. We have been invited to a barbecue, and I don't want to miss that. We don't get out much. Yeah, and I'm not saying feel sorry for us that we never get invited into anything, but we're old. And maybe some of you people can relate to this, but we really don't go to the parties and events that young people go to anymore because we're old. So we got invited to a barbecue. It's kind of a unique barbecue because it's all gay men at this barbecue. We haven't been to anything like that in a long time. So I'm looking forward to it. There are going to be people there that we do not know. Not that that's a problem. I can talk to anybody, as you've probably figured out. But yeah, so that they decided to spring that on us a few days ago. And of course, when you know it, it would be on the Saturday I want to have a pop-up sew day. So Pop-Up Sew Day is canceled for this coming Saturday, August 22nd. However, I have rescheduled it for the following Saturday, which is August 29th. So next week, the link for that will be down in the show notes for you. And of course, if you've never been to a Pop-Up Sew Day, they're kind of like my sew days on Wednesdays, with the exception it's on a Saturday. So those of you that can't make a Wednesday one because you do something like work or whatever, but you've wanted to come to something like this, then it is available for you on Saturday, August 29th. And we just come and go as you please as well, and work on whatever you want to work on. So this might be a good time to start thinking about your Christmas projects and maybe getting a start on them then as well, because it's a coming. I know. Don't say it, but it's true. We can't slow down time, unfortunately. Okay, so I went to Ultimate Sewing the other day. I needed some thread, embroidery thread. I want to get a new foot for my sewing machine, my domestic sewing machine. I found out something. I saw a YouTube video a few weeks ago that actually was talking about the fact, but actually it was on John's of Art East on his channel. He had the Tobishes on. If you don't know who the Tobishes are, they are the couple who invented the Acorn products. Plus, Bernie Tobish is very much a sewing mechanic person. He knows everything there is to know about sewing machines. He even wrote a book. I have his book. It's excellent. He wrote that book some time ago, but it still applies today. So if you look it up, Bernie Tobish, I'm sure you can get it on Amazon somewhere. And he was talking about some, general maintenance on your machine. And one thing I didn't realize was, over time, on the bottom of your foot, you can get grooves cut into it by the feed dogs. And of course, when you use a foot a lot, like I use my HP quarter-inch foot. That HP with the Janome machine stands for high performance. It uses a single hole plate and this foot, and it's great. I love it. I piece everything with that foot. So I thought, I'll take a look. Yep, there it was, etched into it, some little marks. Now, I don't think they were doing any harm to my piecing. However, they were, it was sort of like I thought, well, maybe I should get a new one. They're not that expensive. It's $15. And maybe my piecing would be even more accurate. I don't know. We'll see. I haven't tried it out yet. But yeah, so you might want to look at the bottom of your most used foot and see if there's any marks etched into it from your feed dogs. And pick yourself up a new foot. Just a suggestion. Okay, so while we're at Ultimate Sewing, they had their Christmas fabric out. Yes, they did. And I bought more Christmas fabric. So here you go. Here is what I bought. Because I had bought so much on our little private shop hop trip, and plus some stuff I bought online, and you've seen that last week in my shelf of Christmas fabric, I decided to look for the more unusual, and this is what I came up with. Little different color scheme in those sagey greens, but still nevertheless Christmas. And then the Christmas ornament and stars in the gold, and the little boughs of holly and pine needle or pine branches with the gold stars. I really love that. I think that's a really cool design. The red isn't radically different, but it is still, and it goes with the one on the other end, far end, that's got the white background. So those are the same fabrics, I think. Yeah, they're the same fabric except different colorway. So I purchased those. So yeah, I want to support my local quilt store, and you know I love Ultimate Sewing, and when I had to have some fabric from them to support them, and also these are really cool. I think that I didn't see these anywhere else actually in my travels. So we got that. Now, what else is coming up? Well, I am going to be on TV. Well, not quite TV. I was approached by the owner of Monfil. You know, Monfill is a company in Quebec, and that's where I buy all of my stabilizers and my embroidery, products that I need for my projects. And they sell a lot more than just embroidery. They sell thread, and I have some of their thread. The thread is excellent. I have bought a lot of stuff from them over the years, and you've heard me talk about them many times. Well, they've been revamping their website, and they've decided to have a section called Monfil TV. And they have asked me, with some other people as well, that if we can create some videos for that. And so, and they could be videos that I've shown in the past. So I went through my catalog of past videos, and I pulled up a few things back about a month or so ago. And they're going to be presenting these over to, or putting them up there. They're on demand. You can see them then. He's announcing the first one though that's up here, and let me just show you the poster if I can. Oh, I forgot. I bought this. There was a sale too on at Ultimate Sewing. 25% off if you bought to the end of the bolt. So I did. I needed some backings or background fabrics. Okay, there I am in all my glory. So this is the poster that he will be putting out on his website, and I think his Facebook page. Now it says this Sunday. It doesn't mean it's this Sunday. This doesn't start to happen until September. Now, for those of you that are long time subscribers, you will have seen probably these videos if you remember them. If you're like me, I never remembered when I made them. You will see those videos, have seen those videos in the past. But, you know, you happen to be over at Monfill, take a look. There's other videos there as well, so you may want to check those out. Because these videos have been designed to help you out on your embroidering and quilting journey as well. And especially if you're Canadian, please support Monfill. They are a Canadian company, good prices, free shipping if you have an order over $100 anywhere in Canada. And Johnny is a great guy and gives excellent customer service. I highly recommend that if you've never been to Monfil, it's monfil.ca. Go to their site, and you will, there'll be stuff there that you will like and you will want. As I said, they have their own brand of thread, which is excellent. Walter uses it all the time for his embroidery, but also I've used it on Lucy, and I've used it in my sewing machine. So it's a very good thread. Check it out. And prices are good too. So if you want a link to this part of their website for the TV, it's in the show notes below, so you can check that out. Okay, now yesterday I talked about, on Monday Morning Coffee with Stephen, I do talk about my 3D printing and what I've been doing. And I showed two things that I had currently made and realized, because one of my subscribers pointed it out to me, that I talked about them, I didn't actually show the pictures. I had a little technical difficulty yesterday and I was hitting the wrong buttons. Yeah, old men in technology. So for the sake of the fact that I said I was showing it, I thought I was showing it, but I didn't show it. I'm going to show it now. And this one's kind of appropriate for today's Idiot Quilter anyways, and that's the magnetic pin holder. And I made a whole bunch of these. They're going to be part of my Christmas presents this year out to people. And it works very effectively. And they don't take that long to make. So I've made quite a few of these actually to give away. That was one thing. And the other thing I talked about is this little planter. And there's, how in your patio tables where the umbrella goes in the center, there's a hole. Well, we bought last year a really elaborate umbrella, and I mentioned this yesterday, so we no longer need to use that hole. Well, I didn't want a hole, so I want to cover it up. I found this little plant a year ago over in IKEA for $4, something like that. And it has weathered very well. But the problem is it's very light. If a strong breeze comes up, it's off the table. So I did have it stuck down with alien tape, but then I needed to remove it because I want to be able to put my Lazy Susan out there. You have company over and you have serve like appetizers, nibblies or something. I have one of those Lazy Susans with the little dishes in it, the sectioned off parts, and I want to put it there. Well, I couldn't if the plant was there. So I had to be able to take the plant off and put it there. Problem is I put it down with alien tape. That took a little bit to get off, so I thought there must be a better way to do this, and there was. I found this plug that's designed to go in the hole, but the beauty of the plug is underneath there's a little cap that screws it down, holds it in place, and so you can remove it easily enough without alien tape stuck all over it. So now what I did was I put the plug in, I put alien tape on the top of the plug, and I put the pot down on top of it. So it won't blow away anywhere, but at the same time, if I need to remove it, I just unscrew that bottom plate and out it goes. If you look here closely, there's a little purple through the table. That's the plug under there. So I should have taken a picture of the plug before I did this, but you know me, I forget things. But anyways, that's what I showed yesterday, or I thought I was showing yesterday, and I didn't. And a couple of you were concerned that I had not shown you that. So I fixed the problem. Okay, so let's talk about comments. Well, this week, I'm not going to pick on individual comments, but there is a feature on YouTube that happens to pop up every now and then, and it's an AI feature. YouTube has gone heavily into AI these days, and that can be good and can be bad, but this is a good thing. What it does, it'll summarize your comments for any given video. And so I thought I would read to you what the summary, what AI summarized, and it prioritizes the comments from last week. And this is what it said. Viewers are highly engaged with the Christmas haul and are eager to transition from watching the shopping process to participating in structured group activities and learning specific techniques. It says there's a strong interest in group sew-alongs. And it's got in brackets moderately. I don't know why it says it's strong and it says moderately. A significant portion of the audience is enthusiastic about a one-day group project or sew-along, specifically suggesting table runners, mug rugs, or projects using orphan blocks to rebuild to rebuild Sojo. Well, you know, that's pretty good. For me as a content creator, it kind of lets me know what you would like to see so I can plan things accordingly. It says another one was requests for technical demonstrations, and in brackets it's got occasionally. Several viewers requested specific tutorials or discussions on advanced topics, including free-floating applique techniques and the pros and cons of digitally printed fabrics versus traditional cotton. Well, I am going to do, on today's video, I have a little clip showing you talking about free-floating applique or free-floating your stabilizers on different projects. So, you know, I do listen to your feedback, and this makes it even easier. And then positive feedback on fabric sourcing, moderately again on that, the level. Comments frequently validated the creator's shopping choices, with local viewers providing quality reassurance about Michael's fabric and others reminiscing about specific regional shops like Len's Mills. Well, you know, that's pretty clever. That's pretty good. And that is a help to me as a content creator. I mean, I read all the comments, but my brain doesn't do this organizational thing. The AI does. So it really lets me know what you want to see. So in order for this to work effectively in terms of content creation, I need you to write your comments. So please put your comments in. Now, I will still read all of them, and I will respond in one way or another to those comments, but every now and then I'm going to have the AI do a summary so I can work on future content. So there is another advantage to AI. Okay, so what did we talk about last week? Just what can I highlight from my videos? On Monday Morning Coffee this week, I talked about pickled jalapenos and bell peppers. Yeah, I had discovered things about peppers I did not know, and so I shared that information with you. On So Chatty, we did a thing with cleaning Lucy, because it is important. Like any machine that you own, you must keep them clean, and cleaning a long arm isn't that hard, and it's not that much different from cleaning a domestic machine. But we went through the whole process. And on our live, we talked about scammers. And speaking of AI, scammers are using AI all the time now. And this is making it very difficult to distinguish when something is real and something's not real. And if you're going, and it's easier for the scammers to get you. So we talked about that. And we talked about how to protect yourself as well. So that takes me to subscribers creation of the week. And this lovely creation comes from Glenna Miller. And just before we take a look at it, please remember, I am accepting your pictures of your beautiful creations for future episodes of Idiot Quilter. Send me just one picture of something that is your favorite or something you're really proud of, and a little blurb, 50 words or less about it, and I'll be happy here to feature it on a future Idiot Quilter episode. And only one picture, please. Now, if it's a quilt and you really want to show us the back as well as the front of the quilt, you can send a separate picture of that as well, and I'll put the two together. But generally speaking, I only want one picture, okay? So here is Glenna Miller's beautiful creation. This week's lovely creation from a subscriber comes from Glenna Miller, and we've seen some of Glenna's other beautiful creations in the past as well. And she writes this: "Hello, Stephen. The attached photo shows a quilt I made this past February. Our local library district holds a mystery quilt sew-along every year. We sign up on January 1st, are given cutting and sewing instructions, and attend the sew day at the end of February. This year they used a Jordan Fabrics quilt pattern in memory of Donna Jordan. I have also known this pattern as Goodnight Irene. I used a Moda layer cake, Good Fortune by Kate, Spain. I have had this in my stash for several years. Have a great day, Glenna." Well, Glenna, this is absolutely beautiful and definitely a quilt that you could use scraps in if you so desired. And I think you've done a wonderful job. So thank you so much for sharing your beautiful creation with us. So that takes me to this short YouTube tip of the week. It's called Wrap Quilt Binding Like a Quilt Pro. Now, I would think this was pretty obvious to most people, but I have discovered it's not. Some people do not really fill in their binding with their quilt. What I mean by that is they put it too close to the edge of the quilt. And so when you get to the binding, and judges will check this, if you put a quilt in a quilt show, they feel it. And if they can't feel anything inside, i.e. the layers of your quilt in there, they mark you down for it. So this little quickie video talks about that. This week's YouTube short tip is about quilt binding. And if you're never sure how to actually get your quilt binding so you don't have any gaps, this tip will help you out with that. And I have heard that when judges judge a quilt, they will feel the binding to make sure that the binding is full. Everything feels like you've got the batting in there and it's lined up properly. So this, if you have trouble, this tip might give you a helping hand. So take a look at it. Okay, so this week's demo is, as I already mentioned, about floating stabilizer when you're embroidering on a thicker project. You may have, well, some people do try to quilt using their embroidery machine, a quilt. And you've heard me say this before, I do not recommend it. But on smaller projects that are kind of thick, that won't stay in your hoop because they put too much tension on it and you can't get the layers of the hoop together, or they pop out, which can be a disaster when you're embroidering. So, or, and when you need stabilizer as well as multiple layers of things, how do you get it all into your hoop? Well, you don't. You float. And so I've had some people ask me to show what I mean by floating elements, mostly stabilizer is what I float, how that all works. So I created a little video. This video runs about, I think, 16 minutes long, so you might want to pause me, get a coffee, and settle in to find out about floating in a hoop.
So recently, I came across some individuals who said they would love to do some quilting on a quilt sandwich in their embroidery hoop. Now, I don't recommend doing a queen size quilt in your embroidery machine because of the weight, and that could really knock out your timing. However, for smaller pieces like table runners or for a baby quilt or something like that, you might be able to get away with it. But what the problem is for many people is what happens if their quilt sandwich is kind of thick, and when you put it in the hoop may pop out halfway through what you're doing, and then that's a disaster. Well, there's a technique that's called floating. Now, in order to do that with anything that's a little bit thicker, you just simply take some stabilizer, and I would suggest possibly in something like I'm going to do, using a water-soluble stabilizer. And we'll come back to that in a minute. But right now, for the purpose of this demonstration, I have this hoop. I have loaded on my embroidery machine a very simple quilting design. I have made my quilt sandwich just out of some fat quarters. So I have my top, I have my batting, and I have my bottom. And I could take this and place it in my hoop. And I'll show you here. I'll just have to loosen off my hoop a little bit. Okay. And yeah, it's tricky because although this is not really that thick, the more I have to loosen off my hoop to get the top frame in, and then I tighten it up. However, this now has 3 layers, 2 layers of fabric, 1 layer of batting. Again, it depends on how thick your batting is. I'm using a fairly thin batting, but it is thicker. And by the way, the batting that I am using here comes from Monfil, and it's actually not a batting. It's more of an interface. So that would probably work depending on the density of my embroidery stitches. But there is a possibility that halfway through or at some point it might go pop and then you'll never get it lined up again. So to avoid that, what you could do is float it. So you take your stabilizer, and I'm going to get some stabilizer, and I'll show you what I mean. So I have my water-soluble stabilizer, and usually when I'm using water-soluble stabilizer, depending on the project, for example, if I was doing freestanding lace, I would use probably several layers, maybe even up to as many as 4 layers of water-soluble stabilizer, because the more stitches, the more chance there is of your stitches with one layer not sewing correctly. So, but for this, because I already have 3 layers of material to go through, I think 1 layer stabilizer will do me. How do you know? Well, when you get it all hooped up and you start looking at your embroidery, if your embroidery is puckering, and this goes for any stabilizer, you have not used enough stabilizer. So you can stop your machine and then you can float more stabilizer underneath. We'll come back to that in a minute. The general rule of thumb that I use is for every 8,000 stitches in the pattern, that constitutes a layer of stabilizer, up to probably a maximum of 4. After that, it's just going to be too unwieldy. Okay, so I have my water-soluble stabilizer here, and I'm going to hoop it. Just in the normal way. I've got to tighten up the nut on here. Okay, and then just pull it so it is tight. Okay, so I've hooped my stabilizer. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my layers and I'm going to float them. I'm not going to sew them down or anything. I'm just going to lay them down where I want them, position them accordingly, and then I'm going to put this under the hoop. So I will show you what that looks like. So I've put my hoop in the machine, and I have floated my quilt sandwich on top. And remember, I said there isn't anything holding this down. You could use a little bit of basting spray if you wish, but you really don't need to. So I have white thread in my machine, just so you can see it a little better. And I have picked a very, very simple loopy flower design for this. And I'm just going to start it up. Now, when you first start it up, you're going to want to, help it along by just holding it down until a few stitches get into it. That will anchor it to the stabilizer, and then it's not going to go anywhere after that. So let's start the machine. Except my tail is a little long, so I'm going to trim. Now, what you can do is, if it bothers you that there's going to be a thread on the back of this, for example, a quilt, you can just manually drop your needle down, bring it back up, and pull up your thread from the back like you would if you were doing a regular quilt on your sewing machine or on your long arm. So I'm not going to worry about that right now. So foot is down. Let's start. And I let it run for a few stitches, just lightly holding it down. I'm not putting a great deal of pressure on this because I don't want to knock the track out of alignment. And now I should be okay. I'll keep my eye on it just to make sure I don't get any tucks, but usually that's not a problem. And so you can see here that it is just stitching away. So we'll let it do this thing, let it finish it off. And I will fast forward the video at this point so that you can see the entire process, but you don't have to sit here and watch it like watching paint dry. Although I do find watching embroidery stitching on the machine still, after all the years I've had a machine, I still find it fascinating to watch. So we'll just let it go and do its thing. Okay, our design is done, so we can take it off the machine. And let me bring it over where you can see this a little better. And so there is our design. And let's pop it out of the hoop and flip it over. And you can see there's our design. Now, to get rid of this stabilizer, because it is water soluble, and this is great. Water soluble is excellent on anything where you don't want to have to tear away the stabilizer, but you need to get it out of your project. So, what I would do at this point is I would take my scissors and very carefully just trim close to the design without cutting into the stitches or into my backing fabric. That removes the excess. And then I would take this over to a sink or have a tray of water, and I would submerge it for about 30 seconds and give it a little swish around, and all of that stabilizer will come out, and you'll be left with your beautiful design. So that's one method for floating um, your stabilizer. Another method is what I already alluded to. And let's say you have taken your sandwich and you've hooped it, but it's really thick. So this one's a little bit thicker, but I think I can get it in the hoop for the sake of this demo. It's a little tough. Loosen off the screw. There we go. Make sure it's well seated in there. There's no wrinkles. And then tighten it up. Okay. Now, if I'm using stabilizer, again, as I said, in something like this that's all layered, you probably don't need to use any stabilizer. But let's say it's another project that you're embroidering. So you would take some of your stabilizer, and I'm using water soluble today for a demo, but you could use tearaway. It's or whatever stabilizer you want to use. But again, what I'm showing you is the floating technique. So you use the floating technique when you think whatever's in your hoop is going to be too thick, or you think there's a chance it's going to pop out of the hoop because of the tension. So I take this and I'm going to mount it on my embroidery machine, as you normally would. And then I'm just going to, once this is in there, I'm just going to slide my stabilizer under the project. Just as simple as that. And then away I go. The stabilizer is not going to go anywhere because after the first few stitches of your design, it's going to tack the stabilizer to the back of your project. And that's what's called floating. And as I said, I'm using water soluble for this demo. You could use tearaway. You can use any stabilizer you want to use depending on the nature of your project. So two methods of floating. Put your stabilizer in the hoop first, float your project on top, or put your project in the hoop and float your stabilizer underneath. And the other thing that's good about this is if you needed extra layers of stabilizer, like I was talking about before, it's easy enough for you to stop the machine. Don't take the hoop out of the machine. Cut the thread. There'll be a button on your embroidery machine to do that. And then just grab another one or two layers of stabilizer and just lift the whole thing up slightly. Remember, it's still going to be attached to the arm of your machine, and slide in your extra layers under that and carry on where you left off. And that's floating your stabilizer for a project.
So I hope you found that helpful, those of you that have an embroidery machine. Yeah, not hard to do, and it'll take a lot of anguish out of your adventure with whatever you are embroidering. Okay, so I have a new product. I'm excited to get this. This is a book by Tracy Perks. Now, you may know Tracy Perks. She's the lady in the UK who was, until recently, she lived on a boat on in the canals in around England. And that was where her sewing room was. That was her house. Well, she and her husband have bought a small cottage home in Scotland, and they've moved into that. And her videos right now are all coming from that. And she shows you what that looks like. And it's very quaint. It looks like a really picturesque setting. But she has just come out with a new book for Christmas called Festive Blocks for a Mega Christmas Quilt. 25 traditionally pieced designs plus 3 scrappy bonus projects. Well, this book, and I have it right here, is great. I got it on Sunday. It arrived Sunday. You can buy it on Amazon. I have a link in the show notes if you want to purchase it. It is not terribly expensive. If you have a Kindle, you can get it for your Kindle as well. It's even cheaper. But the beauty about this is the entire quilt, but these are all the blocks, and there's 25 of them as noted in the title. And Tracy Perks designs are based around just squares of fabric and half square triangles. So they're really easy for cutting. They're fairly fast for putting together. Now, this is something that I want to do is right here. The page I've marked with the sticky note, this is a poinsettia. And I thought if I make some of those or make a couple of them and one of the other designs in here, make a nice table runner. I don't know if I'm going to do the entire quilt. I probably won't because I'm working on other things. But I thought as the table runner goes, this would be great and fairly quick. Now, yesterday I already cut out my pieces for this. It took no time at all. And if you have a stripology ruler, make short work of it. This is also would be cut friendly, AccuQuilt cutter friendly. That's what I'm trying to say. But her instructions are very clear. She talks about, basically making them with, any fabric you have. But I mean, of course, this is a Christmas theme, so you might want to go Christmas. Here are the 3 bonus projects: a cushion, a lap top quilt, and a table runner. But as I said, you can mix and match your blocks no matter what, so it makes it very versatile. She talks about the materials and tools you'll need, and for those of us that have been around for a while, that isn't anything new, but it doesn't hurt to review. Sometimes we get trapped in bad habits. She has fabric requirements, and beside everything, her instructions and her fabric requirements, she puts a little blank box so you can check it off when you've got that part of it done, which I think is very, very handy. She has basic techniques. Okay, she talks about making half square triangles, and then she lists everything you need, all of the 2-inch squares and the colored combination, how many you need of each, and in the other column, the 3-inch squares that you'll use for making half square triangles, which you'll trim down to 2 inches. So, yeah, very, very good book. Lots of ideas, tips. She writes very clear instructions, and she lays everything out row by row. All you do is follow her diagram for each row for putting the pieces after you have them cut out and the half square triangles made to make the design. So I have made a couple of her patterns before, and they're really a lot of fun to do. They're simple, they're fast, and they're effective. So I highly recommend this book. Again, Festive Blocks for a Mega Christmas Quilt. Put it up here, by Tracy Perks. Available on Amazon. And I've put a link to the Amazon link for the Canadian store, but you can find it on the American store as well in the show notes below. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to working on this. I think it's going to be fun. Okay, so I think that's it for me today. Just pop me back here. And thank you for joining me. And tune in for So Chatty this week. I have no idea what we're going to talk about. Maybe talk a little bit about Walter's current free motion quilting with whatever he may have done this week with it, and we'll talk about other things. We'll find something. But we are off now to IKEA because, and I'm excited, I'm getting some new shelves for this room because I am reorganizing. And if you look over my shoulder at the top of my design board, you can already see some reorganizing going on. But more about that on a future video. So have a great week, and we'll see you soon. Bye for now. Hi, I'm just going to interrupt my program for just 1 second to remind you to like the video, to subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell for future notifications. That's all I ask of you. Show me a little love. Thanks.